400 built every day. A stated target of 1,000. Pull one apart in the navigation, the processes, the sensors traced to more than half a dozen countries, moved through roughly 160 front companies. That gap between what the weapon does and who answers for where its parts came from has been chosen at every step, not by accident, by doctrine. 8 years from a robot tank that failed its own trials, trafficked labor on the line, a decade of talks in Geneva, 30,000 strikes a month, and counting. A rule meant to govern these weapons binds only the states that agree to be bound. The ones building the most have all declined. If only the willing are bound, who is governed? Let's get into it. In 2018, a Russian robot tank was sent to Syria to prove itself in combat. It lost contact with its operators 17 times in a single month. The same program now fields drones that pick their own targets. This is the Hamberger Report. I'm Andreas Hamberger, enterprise architect, Wellington. Report went to a defense conference in St. Petersburg. Sensors rated to see for miles managed barely a third of that range and went blind whenever the vehicle moved, fire commands stalled, or simply failed to send. The researchers' conclusion was blunt. The machine could not perform its tasks, and another 10 to 15 years of work were needed before it could. A separate account from the manufacturer's own marketing claimed the opposite: high performance in the field. The same system described two ways by two institutions with two incentives. In any Western program, the candid report ends the project. Instead, months later, the Army adopted the vehicle for service and announced every fault resolved. No review asked why 17 losses of control did not stop a deployment. No inspector examined the gap between the assessment and the announcement. The failure was not a malfunction. It was the method. There are two ways to build an autonomous weapon. One runs through procurement cycles, audits, and public records. The other runs from the battlefield straight back to the factory floor, with nothing in between. The first is slow, because oversight is built into it. Hearings, audit trails, the structural possibility that someone, somewhere has to answer. The second is fast, because that second term has been removed. Systems deploy before they are ready. Combat, not testing, decides what survives. The feedback loop runs from the front line to the assembly line, with no external checkpoint at any stage. No parliamentary equivalent demands to know why a failing system was fielded. No inspector investigates the distance between what the engineers concluded and what the generals announced. This is not a gap between capability and governance. It is the deliberate absence of governance, treated as a competitive advantage. And the cost of the iteration is not borne by the people refining the design. It is borne first in Syria and then in Ukraine by the people the systems are tested on. The robot tank's replacement was not bigger. It was smaller, cheaper, and far more lethal. A loitering munition called a Lancet, built in part in a converted shopping center. A Lancet costs around $35,000. The makers turned an abandoned shopping center into a production line in 2 months. By late 2023, open source trackers had logged hundreds of strikes, roughly a third of them destroying their target outright. By 2025, one analysis counted close to 1,500. A single strike can destroy a launcher or a howitzer worth 100 times more. The newest variant launches in a swarm from one container, each drone sharing target data with the others, each selecting its own target from preset categories: radar first, then air defense. Its chief designer said on state television that the system had already been used in fully autonomous mode in active combat. The processing runs on the same commercial AI modules that sit inside self-driving cars. The operator picks the area. The machine does the rest. Russia did not invent its most produced weapon. It licensed it. In late 2022, it agreed to build an Iranian drone design on its own soil under an arrangement one newspaper described simply as a franchise. The design was the Shahad. The Russian version is the Geron-2. Production moved to a special economic zone, the size of 14 football fields, staffed, investigators found, partly through coercion and trafficking. Recruited workers, foreign laborers, teenagers from local colleges. By early 2026, Ukraine's military command reported 400 built every day, with a stated target of 1,000, enough by one estimate for 30,000 strikes a month. The unit cost fell from $200,000 to $70. A newer model swapped the propeller for a Chinese-made jet engine and a range of 950 kilometers, a cheap stand-in for a strategic cruise missile, assembled from parts no single export regime controlled. Next Friday, the series turns to where the design came from, an assembly line outside Isfahan and a $20,000 weapon that changed who can afford to wage autonomous war. Lethal by Design runs every Friday through late August. Pull one of these weapons apart and you find something uncomfortable. Not a triumph of Russian engineering, a map of everyone else's supply chain. Investigators who dismantled the wreckage traced the navigation modules, the processors, and the sensors to suppliers across more than half a dozen countries, moved through roughly 160 intermediary companies set up to stay ahead of export controls. The parts were commercial. The supply chains were the ones global enterprise runs on every day. For a board, the lesson is sharper than a compliance checklist. When a component you sell can end up in a weapon that no one will answer for, provenance stops being a procurement detail. It becomes a governance question. Who in your organization can actually say where your technology finally lands and who decides that the answer is good enough? While the weapons were being built and counted, their makers sat in the Geneva talks year after year, explaining why none of it needed a single new law. The position held for a decade. Existing humanitarian law is enough. Meaningful human control is, in their words, a subjective idea unrelated to law. Responsibility ends the moment a commander assigns the mission, and whatever the machine does between launch and impact is treated as engineering, not law. Researchers who read every submission found the real argument underneath. This was never only about weapons. It was about sovereignty, great power status, and a refusal to accept limits set by forums the state did not control. Each time the talks moved toward anything binding, the same delegation used the consensus rule to stop it, blocking even grammatical edits to the text, forcing the room into closed session, shutting out the observers who had helped build the process. One disarmament group wrote that the conference had been taken hostage. The forum was not failing despite that presence. It was failing because of it, working exactly as it was designed to work. Then came the votes the consensus rule could not block. 3 years running, the wider assembly counted where the world stood on these weapons. In the third year, the count changed. For 2 years, the maker of these weapons stood almost alone against even discussing limits. By the third year, it was no longer alone. One of the states that had launched the Responsible Use Declaration, the framework's own architect, voted the same way and stood beside the state that had blocked the process for a decade. The states with the most advanced autonomous weapons programs are arriving by different routes at the same destination, none willing to accept a binding rule. That is the mirror test. A framework that binds only the states that choose to be bound is not a framework. It is a preference held by some and declined by others, and the others are not all adversaries. The gap here was never an oversight. It is a position stated plainly in every submission. The law as it stands is sufficient, which means the weapons as they fly are lawful, which means the question of who answers has already been closed. Whether it stays closed is not Geneva's decision. It is everyone's.
That is the Hamberger Report for today. If this was useful, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more professionals find the channel. You will find links to everything we covered in the description below. I am Andreas Hamberger, and I will see you tomorrow.
Like and subscribe.